Too many options. Evil Bobby. Oh, sorry, we're on the air. All right, so sorry, just snorting some coke, man. All right, so we're ready for Continuum. This is going to be a show 10, 11, and 12, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
13 is the final. We're going to be doing that in about a week. There was some concern. There was, will our huge fan base get disappointed? And quite frankly, I don't care. But we're struggling to get through these shows and watch them, and this has been a bit of a gauntlet. And the thing with a gauntlet, it doesn't become a gauntlet until you kind of get to this point where you're saying, wow, I barely had time to watch those 3 shows, and yet we have another show that's coming up in 4 days. So yeah, it's the end show is going to be awesome. I'm really excited to get everybody on. Fortunately, Ken, he is busy at CTV. He's the audio engineer for CTV Canada. They had to fly him to Ottawa. He has a big crowd. No, just kidding. CTV Vancouver. So with enough belly aching and blathering, I'm going to give you over to somebody that has a little bit of continuity and some facts behind him. That's JD, my wonderful co-host.
Hi, Bob. It's good to see you.
Hi.
Thanks for coming back, Steph. As always, really appreciate to have you here and get into this again and again and again. And thank you, Tony, for coming back. I love your insight. I love your viewpoints. It's so good to be going through this. We're in the last bits of this, the last kind of third before we hit the big finale that's coming up on June 22nd this Sunday. And we will do our last finale show a week from this Sunday, June 29th. And that's when we'll get into that final episode and maybe get all those questions answered and all those things done. This episode tonight, though, is going to cover episodes 10, 11, and 12, which is Revolutions Per Minute, 3 Minutes to Midnight, and The Dying Minutes, appropriately titled. And let's start off and get into 10, and somebody else take this from me. Go.
Okay, please. Now, for God's sake, I just wanted to throw one right back at you, J. Dean. Is number 13, does anybody know what the number 13 is going to be called?
It's called Last Minute.
Oh, God, they must have, I can see them around the table and say, I'm so tired of this stupid minute idea. Who came up with this stupid minute idea? Next season, no minutes. That's it. Come up with another thing that's easier. So, wait. All right, so show number 10. Yes. So let's start this baby off. I'm going to jump in there to give you guys a bit of a breather room. Of course, with all, just for people that are coming here for the first time, we do 4 questions: best scene, best character development, best line, and worst and most confusing scene. And really, worst, we never really get into that. We just talk about the confusing scene because this is a time travel, a lot of time travel stuff going on. So there's some amazingly complex, weird, confusing stuff that goes on. So for best scene, I'm going to jump in and start the whole night off with the final scene when now who's the guy that's shacking up with our favorite cop?
Well, he's originally called John Doe, but in that final scene we get his name.
What's his name? What is
Yes.
Brad Tonkin.
Yeah,
yes, Brad Tonkin.
Brad. So anyways, that for me was the best scene, was the final scene when he discovers the truth about his timeline, not just his family, but the timeline. Because we've kind of had a hint about, oh my God, one timeline was completely obliterated. And now yet another timeline we're talking about, which wasn't obliterated, it was just messed up big time. So, and this is, I think, in a recurring conversation through all 3 of these episodes, where they're starting to realize, like, the ineptitude of what they're doing and how it's really not making any change, and some of the things that they think are doing great have horrendous consequences. It's very, very, very interesting. So with that huge goose egg, I will throw it over to Stephanie.
Okay, for the best scene?
Aye, lassie.
Okay, so the best scene. Now, all through this entire season, for some crazy reason, one of my 2 least favorite characters have been Carlos and Dylan. Aww. Mostly because I just haven't seen a whole bunch of reality in them. I mean, it feels like they're just kind of subdued characters. But in this particular episode, there's that lovely scene when Carlos absolutely calls Dylan out on his bullshit. And they're like talking, what do I have here? It was just this thing where Carlos like kind of steps up and says, yeah, whatever, right? And I just loved it because it was very human. It's what we were all thinking all through the episode.
Yeah.
And I like Carlos strong a lot more than I like him weak. So that was my scene.
Did you like him as a daddy character? Because there was some stuff going on like that too, isn't it?
No, didn't like that. I just think this guy is supposed to be the police officer that keeps everybody on track. He should be the leader, and I haven't seen any leadership in all the season with him. But
it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that because I think he's being when we get into episode 12, I think next season he'll be thrust into quite a leadership role because of the circumstances that seem to happen. But he's always been this guy who hasn't really chose any sides, and to me, and it's revealed I think in episode 12 as well, the losing of Betty, the whole idea of this was one other person he could kind of believe in and connect to because everybody else is fucking crazy to him. And so I think that's a lot of the problem with his character is he can't really commit to. They're all crazy people. They're time travelers. They are looking at the world in a hugely different place than him, and he only is centered here. I think it's hard for him to be a leader, but I agree with you. I think it's a powerful scene, and I think his character really shines. And I will segue into my best scene, which is with him as well, which is when they give the Viking send-off to the other Kira. He says an amazing line in there too, that he misses her. What was the line? It's sorry.
It's the show note scramble here, folks.
Yeah, here he is. Listen
and
to the paper.
So long, partner. Glad you're still here.
Oh, and Tony comes in with the head, and Jadine is left in the scraps. He's sorry, Jadine. You're just like so out of loop. You can tell poor Jadine's. He can't even read. He's so exhausted.
Yeah. So long, partner. I'm really happy you're still here. It really is powerful, and also just for the fact that him and Alec have a moment, because they're two guys from this timeline where Kira isn't, and the other Kira that they lost from this timeline. And I love that Alec also dresses down in this scene, and he's in like his jeans and his hoodie, and she only knew me like this. It's a really, really powerful emotional scene, and I think it's a nice, a creamy nougat compared to the two end scenes with John Doe and Kira. I think it's a really good juxtaposition of the old world ending and him destroying, even though we know how dark that scene really is because Alec is basically trying to destroy evidence. But I found it really powerful. Carlos came through, Kira came through. It was very like tearjerker type of scene, and Alec too, but I still think he's as evil as fuck, that guy. But Tony,
obviously we're not holding back tonight.
Tony, what's your best scene?
Well, I was thinking that what's been happening with Carlos is the people that he's trusted have all basically disappeared or died or changed.
Tony,
my volume's down.
No, you're popping your P's. Your mic
is too close to my chin.
Yeah, well, it's your breathing. There you go. Try that.
Anyways, can I hear better?
You're gonna have to move it up a little bit. Sorry, dude.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we keep this in recording, so it's.
So I get points back for this, right?
Heavy breathing.
Everyone that he's trusted, he can no longer trust, and now he's starting.
Tony, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'll edit this out. We're at 9 minutes. I'm gonna do a 9-minute edit. Try bringing it up above your nose.
How's that? All right, testing.
A little bit down.
Testing.
Yeah, that's
Hello.
better.
Yeah.
All right.
30 seconds. Yeah, I'll take it all out, so don't worry, guys.
Okay.
Take two.
Except for people who are watching this live on YouTube.
Behind the scenes.
All right. Tony.
Carlos has found that all the people he's trusted no longer can. They've changed, or they've done things to betray him, like Alex stealing the body. Just everyone, even Kira being a different person. So he's thinking strategically now and going to Alex's brother, who eventually becomes Theseus, or may become Theseus. He starts thinking about how to use people in order to. So I think the question of him becoming a leader, maybe that's what's on the agenda for the writers next season. He's certainly being thrust into that spot.
Yeah. I like that. There seems to be something really, and this like goes back to the beginning of the season. For some reason, Carlos has kind of a soft spot for Julian, probably because of what happened to his father, and because of Carlos being shot by Julian. For some reason, they are inexplicably connected. And Betty, like if we look at the old timeline, at the end, Betty finally, brings him to see him. So there's definitely some kind of connective tissue there. I really agree with you that there isn't anybody he can really trust at all, because everybody has an agenda. And if it isn't power or getting back to a timeline or killing people or profiting, or he's the only guy who just wants to do his job, and it's the hardest thing for him to do.
Okay, who's next up the back? Let's Antonio, we're going to throw you on.
Oh, sorry.
Best scene.
So what was your best scene there?
Oh, I'm not sure I really had a best scene off that, but I had a good line from Betty. I guess dental's not the only perk when she.
Hang on, you can't use your best line. That's two.
Oh, I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry.
Are.
Oh, well, okay. The best scene then is when Kellogg stuck Cameron with the bill.
That was the roll of the eyes, like and I could have snuck that under character development well. Very funny. Yes, okay. There you go.
He's the best.
Oh man. Yeah. All right, cool. So that was a very swift and amazingly fast. Usually
character development.
All right, who is? Let's throw it, Steffi. We're going to start with you for character development. Who is the character that you think is being developed?
It's funny because I don't think, because there was so much play with these two characters, I don't think it's a one-character thing. I think they're playing off each other to develop each other's character. So I actually said Julian and Sonia, because Julian is still in that process of, am I going to go Theseus or am I going to stay Julian? Like, he doesn't really know, but you can see his leadership role, or you can see leadership seems to be my key word today. I don't know why, but anyway. But you can see that he's starting to kind of take a more adult, this is the way things are, this is how I feel about things.
Yeah.
And was this the scene when they read Theseus's manifesto?
That was later.
He passed.
Was that another episode?
No,
it wasn't. Well, there was definitely a scene where they passed it around, and the comment was.
That's in another episode, though.
Another episode. Well, anyway, for whatever reason, Sonia, we're starting to see her softening.
No, it's in this.
It was this episode because I have a quote from.
Yeah, you're right.
All
Sorry.
Right. No problem. That's okay. We know you're hallucinating. No big deal.
Stop interrupting. Yeah. Go ahead.
Take a pill. Take a pill.
We've got Julian, who is kind of really coming into his own personality, not really being warped by all the other people that are actually in the series itself. And Sonia, in the same time, it's like all of these things that have happened is really starting to soften her character a lot. I mean, she's introduced in the first season as like the ringleader, the one you have to watch out for. She's like Madame Medusa, and now we're just seeing the human being Sonia.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think in terms of character development, I think Sonia, these 3 episodes are really about her arc in quite a way. Between her and Brad Tonkin, I think those two characters in this episode really developed quite a bit. One, because his memories come flooding back, and we know what alternate timeline he's from and who his family was and what he was willing to sacrifice to change something. But with Sonia, it's really incredible. I think with that episode that we had in the future with the Gleaners, we really got to know her and what she's been through and what she's willing to sacrifice. She's Kagami with a heart and somebody who really cares, even though, like you said, in the early seasons, she was just ruthless, and she still has a ruthless nature. I mean, she says to Christine in the car, you know, you betray me and I'm going to cut your pretty little throat. It's like, holy jeez, man. And it's really just simply offhanded, like you don't seem to understand that this isn't a game and this is very matter of fact. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think character development wise, these 3 episodes, Sonya really, and an incredible payoff in episode 12, of course. But
so would you agree Sonya is for you the character development person then?
oh, absolutely. Yeah. I really like the way she's encouraging Julian, and it's so funny when you're in that situation where you see the potential in somebody, and she sees him as being that leader, and he doesn't see himself yet, and she has taken a tremendous amount of effort and risk to make sure he does become that person. And that's how you know she's a great character, because she's willing to sacrifice to push somebody else forward. That's yeah, she's pretty phenomenal.
Cool. Tony, did you have the same idea, or somebody else?
I guess the entire show is really about character development. That's what makes it so good. But I would say that Brad Tompkin was more of a character reveal than development, because he does develop later on in the next few couple of episodes. But at this point, you're just getting to know who he is. He does make choices, which is what I would call character development. But yeah, Sonya, it seems to me, she's the one going through the most. Carlos is going through some. Alec is just totally ambiguous. Is he really going to be the complete evil person, or is he going to snap out of it?
Well, that's Alex 1, or the Alex in the cage.
Yeah, and then. I would agree. Sonya probably is the one where we've seen the most change in her as a character.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, because I have my notes here, and it's been like 3 days since I did episode 10, and then I watched 11 and 12 today, and I've got the character development as Jason.
Yes, yeah.
What? Why? Because I can't remember.
Yeah, well,
Because so much goes on in episode 10, 12, 11, and 12 is like, what?
It's Jason 2.0, right? He gets Halo, and for the first time, his scrambled brain and his old persona from the future, where he was a stable guy, kind of meet, and he's Jason 2.0. He becomes a mix of the unstable and the stable character, and really amplified by Halo, and turns into quite an angry fellow. One of my favorite scenes of the next episode is with him in it, but when we get to best line, Jason has the best line, and in my opinion, it's quite humorous.
Great lines coming up. Speaking of which, let's sorry, Stephanie, did you do a character development?
I have. We're on to the next one now.
Oh yeah. So okay, Stephanie, you're chomping at the bit. Best line, what is it?
Well, I happen to know, I think I know which one Jadine is going to call out on, because he alluded to one of my favorite. Anything with Ian Tracy, anything with the Jason character is always a favorite of mine, but I'm going to let him say that.
You don't have to. I got other lines. I got other things.
But so instead, I'm going to call out on the Carlos line that I thought was incredible. And that's when he takes a look at Kira and he says, "How's the house guest? Still sleeping on the couch?" Because I mean, I think we all see that of all characters in these shows, the Kira and the Brad character, there's the most chemistry there out of any of the characters on the show, I think.
Sure.
They're two time travel warriors. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. They're two time travel warriors, not in their time, both trying to survive, both trying to change the timeline or change the world or save it, or not even sure what they're doing. I think it's really great. They're two fish out of sea who found each other. I've talked to a few people who are like, not too hot on the relationship. I think it's fantastic. I think it's what's going to push the next season, and to have those kind of stakes, because she's been disconnected from her stakes for most of this season. Season 2 was about her family. This season is about finding someone new to believe in and to get behind, and I agree with you. I think it's awesome. I love that.
I never said that I thought it was awesome. That's a totally different story. The line that Carlos says is good.
We can get there.
I look at it more like the lone cowboy type of thing, like the gunslinger that nobody respects in the background, and he's oh no, I won't go in the gunfight. No, and then in scenes coming up, he brings out some serious friggin' hardware. It's ridiculous. And there are some great scenes for that. So, okay, awesome. Best line. Let's go to Tony.
I've actually got 3.
Oh, well, you can use one, and then I'll give it over to JD, and you guys can duke it out afterwards.
Okay.
So pick your best before somebody steals it.
Okay. What? I'll go with Kellogg's. He's talking to Kara. I stole one of yours.
No,
You
it's
might have
good.
stolen
Anything
mine.
Kellogg, I love. Just go.
Okay. Where he's responding to the stock opportunity, and his response is, sounds like a sure thing or a familiar thing.
Yes,
That's
he does a
difficult.
lot of lines like that.
Yeah.
Playing with his time reality, and he is a saucy young man, isn't he? He's the only guy that's like saying, "Hey, come on, we're time traveling, let's party."
I
He's been
think
like
that's
that
amazing.
recently for
He's
2
the
seasons.
only guy who's like totally okay with it. It's like
Yeah.
it's like the
Don't worry
plane
about it.
crashed, and he's the one saying, "Hey, let's find the liquor." Woo!
Until we
Hey, look
till
at
we
free
find out
liquor,
something
everyone.
really significant about him later on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
well, there's some
yeah.
serious stuff goes on later on.
So
It's like,
thanks, Steph, and thanks, Tony. I'm gonna slide in with Jason, of course, and so he puts on the Halo base bracelet, and it's Jason 2.0, and it's like the fog is lifted. He says that, if you're gonna make a time omelet, you're gonna scramble some eggs. And Alex says, wait, that sounds like something you would say. Well, it doesn't fix your sense of humor.
Yeah.
And I just love that. Like, he's still Jason. He's just Jason in control. That's all. And it's so fantastic. I mean, a couple episodes ago, Kellogg had him put on the suit to look cool and in control, and now he really is with Halo. And not only that, there's a great scene that's, I think, within that same scene where Alec accuses him of dumbing it down for him, and he's like, "Oh, no, I'd never do that." Like, he is a genius who's from the future. Alec's a smart guy, but Jason has learned everything from Alec, and it's really interesting. I'd really love to see an adversarial thing between the two of them next season. I think that would be fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's interesting because I have that as my my best line is, "Can I be first dad?" And that's Alec and Jason Hager. That was, but it wasn't. It's just not the line. It's the way he said it. He was like, he's this older guy playing, but he looked like a kid, and then the rolled eyes from Alec. It's like it was a perfect. It looks so weird because they played the opposite characters.
Yes.
And it worked so well that you're saying, "Wow, that guy's a kid, but he's older, and this guy's the young guy." But that's what. It was brilliant.
He does such an amazing job.
Half a second.
There's a webisode that is
Great.
a small scene where somebody from HR shows up, and she's really cute and mousy and techie and nerdy, and he's totally like doing paperwork with her, and he's trying to be all slick and pick her up. He does such an amazing job. It's so great.
He's definitely into that character. And that reminds me, let's do at the end of this, let's do a little chat about the webisodes. I haven't been following the webisodes. Bad me, because I really, really want to do it. I was actually listening to the last episode we were chatting, saying, "Oh, Dan, the webisodes, I gotta get into that." Yeah. So I think that's highly important. So we'll talk about that just before we do the scores. So who's excuse me, who's up for best line? Have we done all 3 of us already? Oh my God!
Yeah. 4.
This red line's coming. Okay,
Tony, you had another. Throw another
bonus round for Tony and JD, because that's how generous we are.
All right. There's one that when Sonia was commenting on Justin. I keep forgetting his name. Julian, on his writing. It's raw. It's pretty rough, but it's Theseus. And his response is, "No, it's me." But the other line was something which was kind of a hint as to what was going on elsewhere in the story. Several temporal signatures 11 weeks ago took place. So not only did Brad Tompkins show up, but there was an implication that other other time travelers are going to show up.
Well, I would have put that. I would have categorized that under most confusing scene or comment in it, because you hear stuff like that and it's like, what? Where did that come from? And you got all these flashbacks happening. So there's a lot of as story writers, they have this amazing ability to say, oh, let's just throw in a bunch of stuff that people aren't going to know about, but it's okay. Next episode, we'll just make that a flashback.
Yeah, it's really funny. I wonder. I'm very curious. Like, I know they have a certain amount of planned out, and Simon Baker has said that he originally imagined this to be like 7 or 10 seasons. So, and you know, hopefully they'll get a fourth. Shaw Media hasn't decided yet, and as soon as they do decide, and they're really holding everybody hostage out there. There's been a lot of Twitter movement. There's been a lot of sharing. A lot of people, you know, getting the message out. They really want the people to call out for it, basically, before they renew the show.
Well, I think
Last
what they should
year
do,
they renewed it quite earlier.
all they need to do is to get 300,000 TELUS subscribers to go to Shaw support Continuum, and then that show's in forever. The marketing guy, we got it. Could we do episodes? Oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
You know? And then suddenly TELUS will step it up, and then TELUS will put on an amazing show. No, fuck Shaw. Nice. Come over to us. New marketing while using, marketing through content. You gotta love it. Anyways,
I want to throw one extra line from Kellogg, my favorite guy ever. This is way after Alec went to the old men meeting and the Star Chamber guys, and so this is after they've destroyed basically the Gautama, the medical pharmaceutical company, and it's all crashed. And he's on the phone. He says, "Do me a favor. Will you pass that on to the other old fat white guys?
Yes.
We will burn you all down."
Yeah.
I love it. Fat white guys.
You know what? I almost put that down, but because of what's coming up next, which is where's the most confusing scene. I'm going to jump in with a segue. Who the hell are these mystery room of old guys? I mean, where did they come from? I mean, have they been here before? They haven't been hinted at, and suddenly it's like, oh, let's just throw in the classic old guys that control the world scenario. Like, what? Where the hell did that come from? And it was for me, it was like, that's a little lame. I mean, they're playing with it. It's great. They're having fun, but come on, it's a little cliche.
It's a foreshadowing, I think.
Well, it is and it isn't, because it's such a stereotypical thing. For me, I thought I would expect more from Continuum, but hey, maybe they'll do something surprising, and I'll feel like a fool.
Maybe they're not quite who we think they are, because what he did refer to was them as the Fortune 500 crowd, but we don't really know who exactly they are. We just know that they're people that have some influence.
Yeah, I think these are the guys that didn't get gobbled up by Alec. I mean, these are the guys that Al's going to come to. Oh, by the way, you're all fired because I just bought you companies yesterday because my little wristy thing is so successful. I can see a scene like that happening. But for me, I think these guys are just they're set up to be knocked down.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but it's also that you're right. I mean, in terms of the arc of Alec, I think that's what part of that is he has adversaries everywhere. Like he wants to, he believes in this Halo thing. He so believes it in so much that he's willing to, dig into Kira's head. He's willing to betray Carlos. He's willing to mess with his son's, his stability, his mental stability. He's willing to do a lot of things, and just because a couple of old guys, like he said, give him a wedgie, he's not willing. It's just another thing for him to pass by. It's part of his arc to the Dark Alec.
Yeah, but he doesn't exist in the Brad Tompkin reality. Remember?
Which technically is this reality, right?
We don't know that.
There's so many damn realities in the show. I'm waiting for the infograph. Where is the infograph that shows all the timelines? That's what I want to see, for God's sake.
Which one is the real future is the question. We don't know.
Well, there's a nice line coming up in the next, I think it's, No, it's in the it's episode 12. I think I use
Yes.
it. So, anyways, a little bit of foreshadowing for this. Let's talk about.
Most confusing scene for Steph.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Well, this is a confuse and dislike scene.
Ooh.
You know, quite honestly, going back to Dylan's character again, we ended up having him throwing his daughter to the wolves to do that behind the scenes stuff. And he was like so deliberate into this. There was a plan of attack. He's like this like guy who's like I'm gonna make these things happen. Like he's super tough, right? And then he begs and pleads to Akira, no, save my daughter. Here's her cover. He blew it without even having that storyline go anywhere. And I had no idea why the writers had made that decision, and I hoped that it would make sense a few episodes later. And honestly, to this day, I still think it was this rush choice, almost like a mistake choice. Maybe we shouldn't have put her in there or something. I don't know, but I hated it.
I really agree with you. I think this is my worst scene versus most confusing, and there's two scenes with him. There's the first one where we have a beautiful Betty flashback that he connects to, and he gets into this really teary-eyed, Kira, save my daughter, oh my God, and then later, when he finds out she's there and they're in position, he says, nah, don't pull her out, I'm fine. And you're like, what the hell just happened? He almost broke down and lost his mind. Either he's an amazing actor and we're supposed to pick up on it, or like you said, this was a plot thread that they started and couldn't find anything to go with it and decided to abandon it. So I agree with you. I think it stuck out like a sore thumb. Dylan came off like a goofball in this one because I don't know who this guy is. Does he have knowledge of the future? Does he even, this is episode 10 and a lot happens with him. I don't know. I agree with you. I
think it's a cutting room problem where they had to shave certain amount of time. So they said, well, there's this little tiny thing that makes it all work, but don't worry about it because what's happening in a couple episodes, it's a moot point. So, all right, let's talk about web series.
Oh, Tony, did you do a confusing scene?
Not
yet.
Oh,
sorry, Tony. Sorry. I feel so terrible.
Finding the key in the coat cuff was the worst scene to me. It's like, what? He's been there how long? Week?
Yeah.
And you're just finding this now?
Yeah. Exactly.
That did jump out for me. Very nice find.
Nice.
All right. Very well done. God, we are eagle-eyed. What I find fantastic is watch doing this show, and then Tony will say something, and then boom, that scene's in my mind. It's like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? I even thought that. I was just
same for me with everybody
having
else.
such a hard time following and saying, God, where's the best character development? And this is the second time round, guys. So, all right. So, who's been watching the webisodes? I feel terrible. You know that I haven't been watching. Has anybody watched the webisodes connected with this last?
It actually falls for me into another one of the confusing scenes. It works.
All right.
They have this like tiny little webisode where they go for Garza and they try and kill freelancers are trying to kill her, and it felt a little out of place. I guess that's why it didn't make it into like the major parts of what was going on. But we see this lovely chase scene where they try and kill her and they don't succeed. And I never quite understood why the freelancers want to kill her. A matter of fact, we touched on that in the very first episode, second episode, where we thought she would revolve and create this entire arc in her character that would make it make sense.
Yeah.
But not.
It never has, and it doesn't look like coming into one episode left it ever will. So it's confusing, but it was a webisode.
It's interesting as you get into like 11 is it's its own thing like before and when we had waning minutes, it's like 11 that episode 7 was its kind of own thing. It's really oh sorry, I think it was episode 7, wasn't it? Maybe it was episode 6. Oh, I'm confused. Pardon me. It's really interesting that there are certain characters who are kind of getting lost because there's so much movement going on with timelines and stories. The freelancers at first were this fierce kind of secretive thing in season 2, and now they've become more of like a passive thing and standing back and watching. And I'm not really sure. I have an idea about it that perhaps because Kira came back through the freelances timeline device, that there's a protocol that she's kind of leading the show, because they seem to be laying off of her and laying off a bit of everybody. They're just observing, it seems, this whole season. They're not really participating a lot. So like you said, I think that webisode is kind of off. It's action and it's interesting, and there's a funny line in there about, catch me next time kind of a thing. But it was kind of odd, and I wish Garza was more of a player in this season. Maybe she will be in the next one.
Yeah. So that episode didn't have a lot of webisodes. I think that the
one?
one?
It's just the one.
All right, that's cool. No problem. We just got to slip the webisodes in there because that's all part of the full package.
Yeah.
So let's talk about scores.
Yeah.
So I actually didn't enjoy this first this show. I gave it a 3.5.
Okay. Yeah. I totally get that. I think out of these three, 11 was the strongest. 12 was a setup for 13. So 10 became this kind of floundering a little bit. I mean, besides Jason, who was super, super strong in this, besides Sonia, who was strong in this, and there was some really great emotional scenes with Kira and John Doe on either end of the show. There was a lot of back and forth, so I gave it a 3.8.
You know what? And here we are. We're saying like 3.5, 3.8. Really, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. But compared to what's coming up, it's not in comparison. So it's you got to score low sometimes because the stuff that's coming up, you can't give it a 6.8. So all right. So Steffi, what did you give this?
3. Originally when I wrote it down, when I saw it for the first time, I had like a 3.5 or a 3.4 in there, but I think 3.7 is a more fair indication of it because there were a lot of really good micro scenes. They just didn't seem to all work together.
Yeah.
Not a lot of continuity in the entire arc of the entire episode, but a lot of micro things that were okay. So 3.7.
Yeah. It's kind of like look, we got to get all these little weaker things together. Let's just throw them into a show because it'll make the next 2 shows incredibly strong without having these weaker things plugged in. So that could have been the decision. Who knows? It's you never can tell. So Tony, what did you give it as a score?
I tend to agree. I guess the last batch of 3 was well over 4, and this time it's maybe at around or under 4.
Mm-hmm. Sure. All right. In a very roundabout way, Tony doesn't use a number. That's interesting. So
I will not commit to a number. You cannot have it.
But that's okay. That's okay. We are dealing with multiple timelines, and I know Tony is at one with the reality.
Multiple personality syndrome.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's Tony from another reality. What can I say? So let's jump smoothly and quickly on to show number 11. And this one, I'm going to throw Tony under the bus with the best scene.
Oh, I'd say the best scene is in the warehouse when everybody's confused. Mm-hmm. It's like nobody knows what.
Who's on deck?
What? That was the
Not
best
only
scene.
is it the best scene, they sustained my level of interest. That scene is so long. There is so much information. There's so much stuff going on, and that they could have turned that into a crazy gunfight. They could have turned it into something really stupid, but it was literally a talking scene with some action squeezed in it. I totally agree. I think it was a centerpiece of wildness, and they succeeded as writers. This, to me, is one of the best episodes of the season. This entire episode, if I can call it best episode, I probably would. Between this and Waning Minutes, where they were in the future with the Gleaners, I think for end to end, I totally agree. They really pulled the rug and said, "Oh, hey guys, we all don't count."
Yeah, exactly.
It's phenomenal. Like none of us matter.
Well,
like it's so great.
Well, I think everybody's going to bring the warehouse. Stephanie is the warehouse scene your scene too. So let's dissect this a bit, because if all four of us think that, okay, the warehouse, the warehouse showdown, that's what I called it.
Yeah.
They call it the standoff, according to the producers, the directors, and everyone else.
So it could be a play. It could be a short play. You could put that in a theater, and it would be like a short history of time travel or something like that. It's so much gets discussed, and if you just showed that scene to somebody who'd never watched this series, they say, what the fuck are they talking about? But because you've got like a season and a half or even 3/4 of information and characters built up, it's kind of like a ta-da moment. It's like, oh, by the way, look what we can tell you, and you get it. It was an amazing exercise in existential discussion. It was very creative and artistic. I loved it, and the like Tony's not Tony, but like Jadine said, the writing is phenomenal because there aren't that many words used. It's not like somebody been going on like this huge soliloquy of 1,500 words. It was like grunt, yes, yes, and then 3 sentences, and oh God, and then somebody comes on the scene and it's like It was very small parts packaged together very intensely, and more and more and more characters were added to the scene. And that's what was fascinating about it, is the ability to have that many. It was like 9, 10 people in the same room, and it felt very. Oh, it was beautifully done.
All the backroom deals were revealed. Everybody knew who was associated with everyone else. Everyone was completely confused as to what was going on, and discovered that everybody was irrelevant. They all thought they had an important role, and then suddenly it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Existential, creative, iconography, like they talk about the Roadrunner, like somebody freaking out and losing their mind. You have some of the best fight sequences and some damage going on. You have torture with the nail gun. You've got like people switching sides. You've got people
you got
thinking
the
they've succeeded and they've won, and then knowing they've lost. Like it's a roller coaster.
JD, what about the classic scene of running through a warehouse with plastic sheets?
Yeah.
Like how many times have you seen that scene? I was like,
know.
Oh, yes, throw it in there. What the hell?
They had amazing everything, and then and bringing all the characters. I mean, you have you got Chen, who's come back from the dead. You got Kellogg, who's a leader of the future.
Chen hasn't come back from the dead yet. That's show 12.
Yes, but we all know he has. They all know he died. We see how it happened, but they all know he's dead. They don't believe, because he died. Everybody knows he died. So
yeah, but that doesn't really count. If you die, so what?
Yes, exactly. but feeling so powerful and so empowered in one moment, and then it's all just crazy nastiness. And then I love the idea of getting back to Brad and Kira, where it's like everything. I killed you, and this happened, and you're working with him, and they just pulled every secret got thrown down on the ground. They all started out and realized none of it mattered.
And then they all stomped on it,
You don't know what you don't know. That was the line that describes that.
You know what really that entire scene reminded me of? Do you remember the old classic Reservoir Dogs?
Yes.
The torture scene in Reservoir Dogs? It felt that attitude of, I am completely and totally taken apart here. Like, my entire spirit has been crushed.
Yes.
And you had no idea if they were planning on taking it to killing someone, torturing someone, what was going to happen. So it was like that whole edgy thing going on the whole time.
Yeah. It was very well done. And of course, they introduced the concepts of yet another timeline that's so messed up, and an amazing weapon. Because they're talking about
that gun.
Bullshit technology, and suddenly it's like, oh my God, look what that gun can do.
What does that time travel device do, or that giant can, that black can that Brad Tonkin?
Don't know yet.
What does it do?
I want
to know.
Hey,
Like
next
he
season.
had a great line in that scene where she said, you know, your stuff up there, what do you have? And he goes, one's a weapon and the rest of the things won't help us in this situation. I'm like, I want to know what the rest of those things are.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
those
exactly.
MacGyver tools? What's going
It's,
on?
no, it's Doctor Who tools. Those are
Yeah.
Doctor Who tools, man. Come on.
Totally.
MacGyver. This is way
Wow.
beyond gaffer
Yeah.
tape.
Sorry, I'm old.
Remember that they also mention, and now I can't remember if it's this episode or if it's the next episode, but they mention how it's like nothing's formulated in the future. So all of these weapons and things that he has, they're probably duct taped together because they were probably created with the branch that happened to be there because no one had made the technology for the gun or like explosive material from something else. So it would be interesting to look through that kit. I would love a transmedia part where we got to look inside the bag.
Being a different future with different conflict going on, the type of technology that would evolve over time would be completely different than Kara's time.
Yeah, it's well thought out, well written, and I thought it was very, very clever. So let's so we've beaten that one to death. So best character development, I'm gonna say Jason here for this. Even though there's so much going on, I'm gonna throw it to Jason because he's kind of like show 10. He's starting to move up, and he just continues with the consistency. Wow, he's integral part of these last two shows.
Yeah.
So I would say Jason is the most character.
And he tries to kill Julian. I think he tries to end the death of thousands. Like, what a great guy! And he does it with like an MMA move. He's got him choked off, and I really thought that was a great scene. He was going to choke that guy unconscious. It was awesome.
Well, it's also him dealing with the flashbacks about him killing and having to deal with that. It's like, oh, I didn't really mean to do it. That was another light. Yeah. So there's all that happening as well. So it's interesting.
If you were to say actor as well, I think he did an amazing job. From the first scene where he's out getting the time travel device and gets confused about who that guy is, and at the police station and he's losing his mind, and then he gets it. Like he does have a really strong character arc in here, and the acting is always phenomenal.
Now, before we move off Jason, I just want to do a little poll from everyone.
Sure.
What we think about Jason is his real personality, not the crazy personality. Is he a moral character? Is he an immoral character? Is he a guy that believes in good? Or is he a guy that doesn't care about good and he's in for himself?
He's someone with an agenda that has yet to be revealed.
Oh,
nice. What do you think, Bob?
Oh, thanks. I would, he's one of these shock characters because when he's kind of being introduced as this invalid and he's so weak and we're trying to help the guy, and then suddenly, like last shows, like it was 9, I think, there's a big fight scene, and then there's, oh, hang on, he's a trained killer. What's going on? So he's from a yokel, someone like, you don't know what the hell you're talking. He's a nobody to like, oh my God, he's getting more and more and more important. And then in these episodes, he's becoming pivotal. So as a character and the way the character is developing, it's very hard as an actor to be able to pull that off because you're doing these from like the last 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, 11. Those are huge shift in character.
Do you think he's morally good, or do you think he's evil? Do you think he's got an agenda?
It's so hard to say. It really is. I think he's originally driven by moral stuff, because it's such a convoluted reality in which universe so and so comes from. You could be doing something that's morally correct, and then you find out 2 episodes, oh, that just killed everybody on the planet.
Okay, so Bob, you think he's a ninja? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think he's a sleeper. That's what I'll put him as a sleeper.
That's a good answer. I like that.
He's a shock. He's going to be a shock character. Something's going to happen. Either it's going to be yin or yang.
I kind of back you up on that, because he was trying to get the time travel device for a purpose, and to him it's, I have to fix it, and he says it to Julian, and he says it at the police station, that like he needs another shot, he needs another chance at this, he's got to fix it, he's got to try and fix it. Now I'm not sure what he's fixing. Now in the future, whatever few scenes that we saw with him and his father, older Alec, it doesn't look like they have a very close relationship with any kind of emotionality. But something has fundamentally changed from season 1, the old Alec that we saw, and now when we see any old Alec now, he seems like a total scumbag. So the timeline has definitely changed, and it's the two Alecs now. So I think the new timeline, this Alec, older Alec, is dark. So Jason comes from a good Alec kind of point of view, and I think that's what part of his problem is he sees where this is going off the rails, and he's going to try and fix it, and he's willing to sacrifice himself to do it. So I think he's morally good.
I'm going to jump in here with a major disagree.
Okay.
I think he comes from a timeline where Alec doesn't exist, and that who's the slick wheeler dealer guy that doesn't care about everything we just talked about? Kellogg. He comes where Kellogg's in power, and because that's really what happens is Kellogg's in power in his reality, and everybody's fighting, and it's all every man for himself, which symbolizes. What do you think?
You know what? It's something just hit me now that you say that. In the next episode, we talk about Chen and the merging.
Yes.
And we'll get into that in the next episode. It's quite possible that Jason is from another timeline merged within this timeline, because so he might possibly, you might be right, and that's the bleed-through problem he's having, that Jason may have died, the original Jason that came from the first timeline, and now he is a mix of two. So which is probably the battle within him. Half of him is morally good, half of him is bad, and he's trying to make a decision to do something right. I think you're right. I think he'll totally be a pivotal character who's either going to make or break something.
Well, and I think that's what the piece of technology he's grabbing, that device will either destroy his timeline or...
Are you talking about Brad?
No, I'm talking about Jason.
Okay.
The device that he's trying to get, it's because is his motivation to get his family back, or his motivation to destroy that timeline because it was such a horrendous thing that happened to his family, because he sees what happens to his family.
You're talking about Brad, I think.
Oh, is it Brad? It's the guy that the
John Doe is Brad.
Oh, sorry.
Jason is Alec's son.
Oh, sorry. My bad. Yeah.
But Steph, what do you think in terms of morally?
Jason, is he moral or is he immoral? I think that the Jason character is a personality that never really got a chance to develop one side or the other. So I think he's a mirror of everything that we want to see in all the other characters. So I think he's the opposite of a Kellogg. A Kellogg is definitely out for himself. I think the Jason character acts as a Kellogg, except on the other side of it. So he is wanting to be good, but he doesn't necessarily feel like he's going to have to be on the good side. So he could flip back and forth if he needed to.
I think that's really great, because every time he's with somebody, he does whatever they kind of say. So when he's with Kellogg, he'll do what Kellogg says. When he's with Alec, he'll do what Alec says. When he's with Kira, he'll do what Kira says. You're right. He is that kind of mirror. That's so cool. That's really a neat observation.
There's the flip side to looking at that too, because first of all, I'm not really sure there is a good Alec or a bad Alec in the future. We don't really know what that Alec is, but there was a sense of something about his character struck me as somewhat foreboding, like he was maybe not the good guy, and that Kellogg, discovering that he's the leader of some clan. And this would be a different Kellogg than the Kellogg that actually showed up, because the Kellogg that we're familiar with is the Kellogg that came from Kira's future. So there's a connection between that Kellogg and the Kellogg who's the clan leader, whom we're currently thinking of Kellogg as the amoral person and setting him up against Jason as being the moral person. But I can see a reverse happening here.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. I mean, Jason could easily be another clan leader when we looking into that other future, that dark future. So, Steph, for character development, who did you think for this episode?
I don't think any of them did any great, like, huge development, but if I had to choose one, I'd probably say Brad. I mean, we started to learn more about him. We started to see his personality develop in a point of, I have a very strict belief system that I'm going with, and I'm working with the material that I've been given, so the information that I've been given at a different stage. So I saw more of that. So I give character development to Brad.
I think so too. With a lot of flashbacks and a lot of information, and you know, in terms of, I could choose the second best scene. It would have been him at the garage meeting his young self. I think that really said a lot about who he is and who he was. And to me, that was so amazingly powerful, where he says, you know, you should hit that kid back. And Kira steps in and says, no, no, you should wait for him to you know, take a swing first, and then you're not the bully. And I'm like, wow, did they just turn him into the hero that he is in that moment? Whoa. But like, that's my second favorite scene, and I think you're right. I think his character development is phenomenal in this, especially because he had a mission when he came here, and by the end of the show, the best final shot ever is where him and Kira put their guns down, and it's just a visual, and it says everything about who these people are, that there comes a point where you have to lay your guns down and go for the greater good, and I think that's what he really gets to in one single episode, going from being literally a hired killer to being somebody who's going to try and save whoever he can.
You know, I think it's also interesting because it reminds me of what Kira used to be. Like, she came in and she had she doesn't know what her assignment was, but she was sent back for an assignment to basically deal with the Alec and make the right Alec come to fruition, and that's really what's this underlying thing that's going on right now, and definitely comes out in the next episode. I was torn between both of them, Jason, as well, coming in and lots of character development from him. So it was almost equal.
Yeah.
But like Stephanie said, it wasn't outstanding. It's like everybody had a chance to just trundle along, and I was having a hard time saying who's peaking here. Everybody's basically neutral. But basically, Jason jumped out for me.
Yeah. Tony, who was your favorite?
Well, I guess I wouldn't put it in my favorite. I would say that Tompkins is the one who, I'd say Tompkins is the one who actually developed the most, because he made a choice to be a different person than what he was.
Yeah.
Whereas Jason, I think he became more of who he actually was.
Oh.
I think there's a difference there in terms of when we're talking about, did someone develop as a character? Jason, I'm not sure he developed so much, in as much as we learned more about him, but did he actually change? Did he actually develop as a character? I would say Brad probably developed the most in that case.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Relatively flat topic, kind of like the relatively flat character development in that sequence. So I will say, let's just jump straight into the worst or most confusing scene. And I'm just going to show... Best scene. No, we got best scene, best character development, worst and most confusing scene, and best line is next.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay. So worst and most confusing scene is, I would say, the warehouse showdown.
No, it's.
What do you think? No.
No, I disagree. I think it was very,
excellent.
very clear what that was. I didn't find anything too confusing in this episode whatsoever, actually. I think they laid out a bit of everything. Everybody's... I don't think it was flat character-wise either. I think everybody was very, very strong. Everybody represented who they were. I think for the first time we got real definition about who these people are. All of their secrets are revealed. Everything they're after and what's at stake is revealed. And also the truth of the powerlessness of the entire thing. I think it was a very great episode. I didn't have a worst or confusing scene at all. Steph, how about you?
Interesting.
Exact words that I wrote down is all very straightforward. That's my note.
Okay, you know what I would say is this may be the first time that this series has done an episode where there hasn't been a lot of character development, and it makes it look like a lot of other TV shows that have zero character development. So maybe that's what happened, is you look, it's like, oh, this is so great, it's fun, you know, it's okay, some interesting stuff going on, but really not a lot of character development going on. And you see that, like, I've been watching white collar crime or whatever, and there's very, very little character development. Every scene is a boom. I know exactly whatever, and you can kind of start guessing what's going to happen because of the people that are thrown into the formula. But with this series, up until now, you know what the hell's going on? Every show, people are all over the place, and there's a new character, and then they kill that character, and he comes back from the second reality. Yeah, it's maybe it's a neutral, I would say, for character.
I disagree with you. I hear what you're saying, and that might be your experience with it. When I watched this episode the first time, I was absolutely riveted. Every scene was integral to what was going on. The stakes were very high in terms of what we were leading up to, and on rewatch, it was just as exciting as the first time. And there is some real lines being drawn here in terms of things, and then all that gets just obliterated in that last scene. And that's what's really great. Is it's like, okay, it's a reboot. It ends in almost like hey guys, it's a do-over. We're done. Like, Liberate disbanded and separated. Kira became partners with the guy who murdered her. Kellogg is hanging out with the guy who threw a knife at him in almost the first episode of the series, who he hated the most, Chen. This is bizarre. This was you mentioned this last episode. What they do really well in this series is set you up and then spin the wheel and see what's going to happen next, because this thing just went in 12 different directions at once. I went, okay, what now?
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. But as far as character development, the characters were neutral. All this crazy stuff was going on, but the characters they weren't doing these massive jumps. You were just kind of tying up some nice knots and saying, "Woo, that's a weird concept," and "Woo, that's a weird concept." But it didn't make the Jason to go over there. He just kept on going on his trajectory. Everybody was in their continuous trajectory.
I'm going to disagree again, but that's okay.
All right, excellent. Ooh.
Tony, what was your most confusing scene?
I'm not sure I would call any scene confusing, other than just what really does make the entire story confusing is the Kellogg as the clan leader, because at what point does he come back in time? And if he does, it's not the same Kellogg we're familiar with, or is it?
And here's how I understand it, and of course none of this applies to whatever. This is theory, straight theory. The Kellogg you see in the projection, which they did a really good job of, throwback to Star Wars. He's even in robes, like he's a Jedi or some shit. What that Kellogg is, the Kellogg you see in the room. It's him older. It's this timeline moving forward. If nothing changes, that Kellogg that we saw in the room with Chen, that's the Kellogg that's going to be in that projection.
So you're saying that the Kellogg that you're talking about and that devastated future is actually Kira's future, the future that she came from?
No. This is Brad's. The devastated future is Brad's future.
Sure.
Brad, which is this present timeline.
Yeah,
I think right now this timeline is owned by Brad. I think Brad is the last guy who came through, and he owns this timeline. It's basically his future.
Yeah,
We're
you have to think
to his future.
You have to think that Brad, that Kellogg from, let's say it is from Brad's future, is aware of the Kellogg from the other future. So he's putting events in motion that are going to affect that other Kellogg in one way or another, right? Assuming he's playing the longer game.
Yeah. That's actually a really interesting kind of way of thinking about it, because everybody gave up in this episode. So there's no Liberate that double checks Kellogg's stuff about himself. The Kira and Brad thing, they're kind of going away, so there's no double check on that side. I mean, realistically, there's nothing about the policing force in this timeline, in this time, that could ever deal with the future time. Kellogg's always held all the cards, but he's never held the cards for a bigger purpose. It's always been his own. So it's actually not very surprising that the new future is one where nobody cares anymore. Everyone went for themselves.
Yeah. They're tired of fighting, or they're tired of fighting for a stable future. It's just chaos.
Or they're fighting for control, domination for themselves.
Yeah, well, and then you go back to the warehouse showdown, because for me that was the most confusing and weird thing. So I doubled up on best scene, and worst and most confusing is the warehouse showdown. And really, it's saying, look at his reality, it's all screwed up, and look at their reality, it's all screwed up. And what are we doing? it doesn't mean anything. We're pivotal characters in this insanity that no matter what we do, it's way worse than it was in season 1.
Yeah.
Because that's okay. So we have they've got these police, and it's a corporate-run place, and it's messed up that way, and there's some profit and nasty, and then the guy that kind of runs it all, Alec, says, maybe if I tweak it, it won't be so bad. And oh my God, it's like, we just kill everybody in one scenario, and another one it's like all messed up with Kellogg reality. There's these horrendous situations that are happening because all these pivotal characters. So yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move this on a little quicker because we are running a little out of time. Let's go to best line, and I want to jump in here because somebody's going to steal it from me. Is nobody kills a Roadrunner? I love that line. Nobody kills a Roadrunner. Jump right out. It's like, that is awesome. And then he has to say, well, it's a coyote, and it's like, and then he goes, shut up, So I thought that was great. It was a nice throwback to people that are our age. Thank you very much. So it looks like we've got some older writers in the crew. Stephanie, what do you got?
Ding ding, top floor, top floor. He says it that way. It was so fun. It was like the Mad Hatter coming back to life.
Yeah.
J. Dean.
For me, it's actually Kira's final kind of words to everybody for them to really understand the uselessness of everybody, that they're all fighting for naught, and that is, no one controls the future. It's an ever-evolving organism, free to change and adapt as it sees fit.
Ooh.
Which is like bananas. The idea that time itself, the future itself, is its own thing, and your influence, what you think you're doing, sorry. That is harsh reality and a really good perspective of moving forward in this thing.
Well,
it
almost brings it to a religious level where it's like there is there's some sort of ultra being and saying, we're just playing with you guys. You can do all the things you want, but really at the end, this is the way it's going to be because,
Kind of reminds me of Star Trek Voyage's Year of Hell. If anyone
very
where the guy kept tweaking reality, destroying a species, pulling out a thread, and changing the reality all around. He was stuck in this loop for 1,000 years trying to fix this. Anyways, sorry.
There was some good stuff. That was Starship Voyager, I think.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So, Tony, what is your best line?
Well, JD took the one I was going to pick, but that's okay, 'cause I have it back up. It's back to Kellogg. Any future is possible. You just have to want it bad enough.
Yeah.
Oh, the true businessman.
Yep.
That's hilarious. So I'm not going to. I don't want to dwell on this too much. JD, you want to throw something in before we?
I'll throw one more, and it's more Kira, and she says, "You can't know what impact your moves will have now. You're done. You're all done."
Yeah.
And they all pack it in.
She's pretty hardcore, man. She's like, look, I've been doing this longer than you guys. We're fucked. Let's just. I want to go home. I need a beer. Okay,
at that point, her bloodshot red eyes. She's had the nail in her foot.
I had a hard day.
You don't know what you don't know. She's got
that.
Basically, I win. I had a worse childhood. I win. Everybody shut up.
And I think she did an incredible job acting in that, as they all did in that scene, because that line you just said, Tony, that line could come off so terrible because it's a repeated line. You don't know what you don't know. Like it could just be cheesy and weird, but she delivered it in such a way that you felt the impact of it, and like you guys have no fucking idea. And we're just children in this. You don't even know. It's really neat, and that leads us into scoring this episode, which is, for me, this was the best of the season for me. So I'm going a full 4.3.
The best in the season gets a 4.3. Holy shit! I was like, what?
Your scoring is
4.5 is the best.
I did a reset of my scoring system 4 months ago because I was a little out of control. I was giving everybody a 4.5, So in terms of out of all the episodes here, there's only I think one other episode I scored a 4.2. So this to me is the highest one.
4.3. All right, because you're saving for the finale.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to kick my ass, and just seeing the preview of it has got me excited anyway.
Well, I gave it a 4.2.
Nice.
Which is quite a high score for me, but I've done that one score before.
Steph?
Well, I had 4.3, but I'm going to top it to 4.4 now.
Oh!
All right, nice work. Nice.
It's going to be a 5? Oh, that's hilarious. All right.
Yeah, favorite episode, definitely.
All right, Tony, what do you got for us?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm gonna go back to like the last 3 and compare it, and it's better than the last 3 and better than the one of this last batch of 3. So let's go. What did I get? 4.2. So this is like 4.5. So I'll agree with JD. This is probably.
You threw out a 4.5.
Well done.
Subtly. Nice.
There you go. Just like slaps that sucker out there. And I raise your tuna. All right.
I love it.
Okay, we're going to move smoothly and quickly. Stumble, stumble, stumble. Another slip of wine. To show number 12.
Episode 12. The Dying Minutes.
So I'm going to jump in here, and really I've got 2 best scenes. One is, and I'm going to use this word, and I know we're going to get a lot of debate from it, but I think it's important. So I'll say it second. But number 2 is Death of Inspector Doyle and Sonia, which is a big
Dylan.
But
yeah,
the zombie.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say. It's like they introduce a zombie. It's like, oh, he's been dead for 6 months. He's back to life.
Oh yes. Chen. Yeah.
That's a zombie.
Yeah.
So what the hell is going on? Are all those guys zombies? Are they all dead? Is a zombie cult run by the guy in the closet? It was like, oh my God, these overlookers are zombies. They're all zombies. They're all dead because you go back and later on the scene, she's getting meditated to. He's just reinforcing their life. And he is, those guys are the new nasty guys for next season. They're going to come out as the zombies and,
Techno zombies. I love it.
Nice. Okay, so that was for me. That was the best scenes.
Yeah.
Steffi, baby, how can you top that?
Let's see. I'm trying to read through my best scene. Actually, go to someone else. I've got to read my notes.
Jerry, I'll throw you under the bus because he's just been
go to
pummeled.
Tony. I'm under the bus as well.
Okay, Tony.
I wrote
think we got a
copious
three-hitter
notes
here.
for the first 2 episodes, and I'm looking at what I wrote last night, and all I've got's best line.
I was really drunk.
Okay, what was a good?
Okay.
All right, no big deal. No big deal.
I've got a couple. I think to me, my favorite scene, and again, this episode is another Sonia-centric one, and her, leading up to the death of her and Dylan, I really think it was upon rewatching. When I first watched this episode, it was really disjointed for me. I didn't super enjoy it the first time, and the second time I really loved it because I realized what they were trying to do. There was a lot of emotional arcs that they were tying up before we got to the big next episode, which is where is this going? So you have the emotional arc of Chan, you've got the emotional arc of time travel Alec and Emily who shows up, you have the emotional arc of what happens after all this shit falls apart, so you've got Sonia dealing with it and finally coming to terms with what she's really going to do and what she's willing to sacrifice, her belief, and literally put everything into Julian, into Theseus, and say, if there's anything I can do, it's this one thing. And on rewatch, the interrogation scene of her and Dylan and Kira, there is so much double entendre, so much extra stuff in there that really that scene for me is that interrogation. I think it comes above, and just understanding her fate and the things that they set up for it. When she meets Travis, she's wearing all black, she's sitting on the bench, she's mourning, she's literally saying goodbye to her lover. She even uses the line to Kira that, I chose an idea over love. you'll find your way. Like it is really a pivotal scene about somebody and the sacrifices in the journey for ideals. It really is the center of this episode, and I thought it was the best scene.
Well, I think she does an amazing amount of foreshadowing in that. It's like, hinting what she's going to do is something weird going to happen, and then bow at the end of the scene. It's amazing. But we'll save that for later on in the show. So, Tony, are you ready?
The best scene, I guess I'm going to what's her name getting killed at the end by Chen.
Yeah, by Chen. Yeah.
She was
Catherine.
She was at that point for me as a character. I was happy to see her go. Yeah, it seemed
but
like
what an amazing thing.
I did not expect that. They let Catherine live. Catherine is who's somebody who's tied up in this like techno religion, the zombie cult, and you just have to meet the traveler. You just have to meet him, and then seconds later, just totally nuts her, and slices her. And,
yeah,
it's like firing your boss. Yeah,
it was, and this is foreshadowing for what I'm going to be saying soon. But really, it was beautifully choreographed. It was like slice, whoosh, special effect. I mean, there was a special effect, but there was a bunch of slicing going on. There was no violence, and then boom, the final. So let's jump to Steffi. Are you ready?
Well, I had two best scenes. The freelancer death dance that you've already brought up was certainly one of them.
Ta-da!
But I think the one that hasn't been mentioned and probably won't be mentioned because it was so subtle was when Kira walks in on Dylan and he's assembled the time travel device and he has no idea what he's doing. He has no idea that this is like the central piece of the entire thing. I mean, it's like he's assembling a baseball and he's like tossing it over his shoulder. It's no big deal. And she goes white.
Yeah.
It says nothing, but her entire eyes perk up and she goes white. And I'm thinking, that was well done.
Yeah, it was very well. That was a very good scene because the way he's putting it together and then she comes in and he's putting other pieces together. And then later in the episode when it's like, oh, it was in his briefcase. So it really nails it as like the guy had no idea what this was. This was the whole thing in your hand. You had it. You solved it all. Blah. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So
she had to reach into the bag and flip it apart so that it wouldn't join.
No, that was he got
Carlos did it.
Carlos to do that so he wouldn't get taken out by the trackers. Which was another very interesting scene. It was a way to tie it up because you say, it's going to happen, and then they undid that.
This was definitely an episode of tying up some loose ends and some character loose ends and some plot points. As much as episode 11 was all about the emotionality of the journey, and this carries on with Sonya. This was about like setting up for the whatever next season is going to be and what the battle is going to be about.
Absolutely, nice foreshadowing. So let's just go on to.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say there's one other great scene in this, and it's a fight sequence. It's not a real scene. They have a fight sequence in a hallway with like 8 people, 6-8 people, and it is the most exciting fight sequence I've seen on this show.
Yeah.
And they're just blowing holes in walls. Kira takes like no less than 10 bullets to her while she's wearing her suit. There's like, it was just bananas. It's such a great sequence with her and Brad Tonkin, and it was really great. And just for pure action and entertainment, it really brought it to life.
Well, that's a very interesting segue for me because I would say best character development, and I'm going to give it to fight sequences because I felt that this episode they brought in a new choreographer for fight sequences because they went up from the last 10 and 11. Suddenly, the fight sequences in this season, in this episode, were like far and above the best I've ever seen. The choreographing was much tighter. The special effects, that there's a scene with the zombie.
Techno,
Yeah, and he throws a blade and he catches the blade and they have this little knife fight at the end, and then there's a slow-mo special thing. I mean, the guy that was directing the scenes, the fight scenes, has never done that before. that's got to be somebody new coming into the and directing. Said, I need that slow motion shot there because when we edit it all together, it's going to be amazing. So that I don't know that, but you could just tell that it was so slick and so clean and so beautifully photographed that somebody really knew what they were doing with the direction of those scenes.
JD, do you want to throw out the
No,
footnote that was in the web series part?
Yeah,
okay, so one of the reasons that it was so beautiful, as you were just mentioning, there's a little footnote that states that they actually shot it, I think, 60 frames per second when the usual is 30. So one of the reasons we see all of this coolness to it is the photography and the way that they decided, the decision they made there.
Yeah.
And I'll add to that this was directed by the creator Simon Barry. It's the only episode that he's directed this season, and he did a phenomenal job. The editing, the shooting, the choreography of that whole sequence of Alex and them escaping the freelancers, and then Chen and Brad. That was so. I agree with you. They brought it. They stepped it up for this episode.
Yeah, it was beautifully done, and the way that it was, it was a good use of, they come into the scene and he's handcuffed, and they have the classic, oh yeah, we've seen this scene before, and boom, 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 they kill the two, they knock out the two guys in this thing, okay, and then it's like, oh, hang on, there's four guys in this really thin corridor, and then it goes on and on and on, that whole sequence, and that was the introduction of an amazing variety of fight scenes. So yeah, very, very well done. So that's for me. I would say the best character development is for fight sequences.
Nice.
Just be an asshole.
Steph, for you?
No, Tony. I think I've already said.
No, you did, Tony. Pardon me.
Best scene?
Yeah.
Best character development.
Character development. I'm confusing the scene here.
I'm gonna have to pass on this one because I'm a little lost right now.
Yeah, no big deal. So are we all. Obviously, you're not drunk enough.
Did you do character development?
No, actually, I didn't. You're talking about scenes. I forgot that you made a scene a character.
Yeah, that's what he did. He went conceptual. He went up here.
Yeah. Hey,
Are we talking scenes or character now?
Character development. A little above. I'm going to throw you guys off too. So you go ahead, Steph.
Okay. So when it comes to character development, I think it's pretty obvious that this entire thing's kind of been about Sonya, really. Yeah. So, for me, the character development, seeing her as a human being, I mean, she really has gotten rid of the entire, warrior. She's got warrior in her, but she's let it go. Yeah. And you know what really, really caught me in this episode? At the time, I was angry that they made the decision, and now I get it. But it was the heels. We've never seen the warrior wearing heels, and it changed the way she walked and her entire feminine kind of persona, which wasn't her character the entire way through. So, we saw her change not only in the things that she said and the way she acted, but the way that she was dressing. She didn't have to be that matronly or, that look that she had. Her dying scene was not her at all.
Yeah,
I
think that's really cool, and the scene with her with the IT guy and the whole sexing it up and playing with him, and you're like, oh, this is really interesting. It's right. It's almost a classic scene that you've seen in a ton of spy movies and a ton of action movies where the woman uses her feminine wilds to trick the guy to download the secret code or upload the virus. But really, you're right. At first, I was a little mad at it. Then I realized that, she had this huge plan. And the lead, she covered herself up in black so Travis never saw that. And then in the next scene, she's walking in there just as Dylan and Carlos roll up in their car. She's timed everything perfectly. She knows exactly what she's going to do. She goes out. She's dressed up. It's really an interesting death march. It's really bizarre, out of character, but really great for her character in terms of growth.
Well, I would just jump in there. There's, I would say, for her, one of her best acting pieces is when they say, oh, and by the way, it didn't work, and she winces just for a second. She doesn't say, and she just winces for that 1 second. That was such a beautiful piece of acting because it didn't need to be in there. They just threw it in, and she just, and then they continued on with the scene. It was very, very well done.
In terms of character development, I'm going to do what Bob did. Character development in this whole episode is about relationships. The largest characters, the relationship between Brad and Kira, the relationship between time travel Alec and Emily, the relationship between Sonia and Travis and Theseus, the relationship between Jason and Alec. It's all about relationships. The best character development was everybody in this. This was like Chen and him overcoming the freelancers who he thinks are crazy and are, he said they're jailers, that Catherine's a jailer. He got to rise up against that oppressive relationship that he was a part of. It was a very interesting episode. It was almost an ending in itself before the finale, and I thought they did a good job tying it up.
Very, very cool. All right, who's up for the slaughtering thing? It's Tony. Have you
character development, Tony?
Tony did it already?
I think, Sonia's the one that probably is the one we've seen more of and who's changed the most. But yeah, the relationships between people is what's being established after the previous episode's blowout and reality setting in, I think.
Interesting. And Stephanie, you had your chance to throw your 2 cents in there, so let's move quickly and painfully onwards to the best line. Yes, well, I hit it.
No, worst and most confusing scene.
You want to do that first?
Yeah.
Worst but hang on, we haven't done our best lines.
Oh, okay.
I thought that came after the
order. Best lines.
Best
you know what?
Best character development.
It is best line. You're right.
You guys, I please stay with the template. Don't edit the template. So best line, or don't drink whiskey.
Okay.
Best line. I'll jump in here. I've got 2.
Go.
And I'm going to use both of them because I'm an asshole. But he dug the CMR out of dead me, and that's in the car when she's going along. But then, like literally 10 seconds later, she says, he says it. So nobody in this car is from now, and I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah.
So that whole car scene, it kind of sets up. We've had the warehouse scene, the previous scene, and now we're in the characters that are in episode 12 that weren't in the warehouse scene get to do their angsty type statements, because it really says, like, it's almost a ground. It says everybody in this car isn't from this timeline, guys. Get it? So this is where we are. This is blank. Alex is, because it's so confusing. It's almost like, just to let you know, everybody in this car is not from this reality. It's a strange thing, but that really resonated for me when I was watching it. I thought it was a brilliant line to throw in there. Nice. So that, for me, that was my 2 best lines, and I'll throw it over to Stephanie.
Okay, so I guess it was because I'm such a visual person, and I just pictured it. Like, you've been picked. You're the low-hanging fruit. How long before you spoil completely?
Yeah.
I just loved it because it is exactly. I think they were talking about, was it Alex's character? And I don't even remember which character it is now. There were so many characters that have spoiled completely in this episode that was beautiful. It was just written so well.
Yeah, I remember that scene, and you're right. I cannot remember who it was relevant to. No, can't remember. Was it
Kira, or was it talking about? It wasn't Kellogg. Was it? I can't even remember.
I can't remember the scene, but I do know there was 2 people in that scene, and there were white walls. That's all I gotta say. In Vancouver. So,
nice call.
So, Tony, I'm going to throw it over to you for best line.
I guess I'm going to go with the true timeline is what we're protecting, because that really boils down to what exactly does that mean. In the case of who said that was like religious fervor, but there really isn't a true timeline.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I you go back to the zombie boss who kind of gets sashimi'd at the end, and her whole thing is like everything is supposed to be in its place, and she's the ultimate bureaucracy. Yeah.
I like how it has changed, and there's this religious connotation that's now come out of all of this once you've introduced this traveler, and I'm going to ask all you guys a question about that in a second, but it really has changed. Like Chen literally is resurrected. He's Lazarus, so he's from the ash. So he's virtually seen God. The traveler is God. And Catherine wants everybody to believe, and Kira's tired of believing in this bullshit. She's just going to try and eke out, and by the end of the episode, is really just going to eke out a new family and a new station in life. Now,
Interesting.
in terms of best line, it was one of the relationships where they've gone to go get Alec and Plan B, and it's she said, Kira says, we're here to get Alec. That was our plan. He goes, maybe, but I believe in Plan Bs. And she says, way to communicate. I know. It's like we're married.
And that's also brought back later on where she's in the cabin and said, these guys are a lot smarter. They had a Plan B.
Yeah.
So it really
it was a nice kickback. There was some really good writing and in so many interesting sequences and threads that were tied up.
Absolutely. So, okay, so we've gone through our best lines. Let's talk about worst and most confusing scene, and I'll throw that to Stephanie mercilessly.
Well, part of my most confusing scene was I couldn't understand how Kira had gotten shot 3,000 times in that hallway, and she seemed to still be kicking. But now, thank you, Bob, was it Bob or Jadine that told me? No, Jadine said, yeah, she was wearing the suit.
Yeah,
yeah, she was in the suit.
I figured that one out. But,
well, what I was watching, why did they shoot her in that damn head? I mean, how bad a shot are you?
He took a gun. He took a gun to her midsection and shot her 3 times at close range, and it looked fabulous. They also had that cool shield, which we've never seen before. The freelancers had that giant shield as they came down the hall. That sequence was amazing. It was so cool.
It was cool, but then you can say, well, why didn't they just use the shield to buffer them over? Why did they turn it on so they could fisticuff? So for me, that was kind of in the confusing, but maybe it goes back to Dune because they had the shield in Dune where it would protect you, but if you had a knife and you could slowly move the knife into the shield.
But
so
they bring up this other thing. Like the freelancers, I really, really didn't get a whole bunch of the freelancer stuff in this episode. And one of the things is there's that quote where they said, we made Cameron one of us. Okay, made Cameron? Didn't they just throw her back in time? They gave her the little chips or data things in there, but what does made mean? So is there something
zombies?
I don't
zombie. It goes to my zombie theory. She says maybe she's dead.
She's been implanted with nanobites, and they're going to convert her.
That's not too crazy. I mean, these guys are zealots, and if they're trying to control a timeline that's 1,000 years old, they'd be willing to do a lot of crazy things. Same thing with me. I agree that the freelancers were very confusing in this because we're trying to figure out where they're coming from, what their end game is, and who the traveler is. Is he they reveal him and he's fucking wicked cool and crazy with dreadlocks. And did anybody freeze frame on him? This is the question I want to ask. Who do you think he is?
Oh, the actor.
No, the character. Who do you think the character is?
You mean from past?
He's totally new.
Do you think we've met him, or do you think he's new?
He's from an alternate timeline where he's able to travel through getting really, really stoned in different timelines. He's from the Jamaican timeline. So it's
well, he's made of technology. We know that. So he's definitely from the future. And the story that was told in episode 1 is that he came from 2177, 100 years in Kira's future, went back 1,000 years into the past, if we're to believe he's this traveler, and has lived 1,000 years.
Well, then
so he's completely made of technology.
Well,
but who is he? Steph, who do you think?
Well, I have a theory. I think it's Bob Marley.
Okay. Steph, who do you think?
Shut down.
Yes.
You might as well actually just put a bag over top of my head when it comes to the freelancers because I'm really confused. Like, there isn't a single thing that makes sense with any of it. I think he should be a character we have met, talked to, and seen character development. We should. But I have no idea who that would be.
Well,
so I did a lot of freeze frames on him.
Oh, here it comes.
I spent a good 5 minutes freeze framing anytime that character appeared on screen, over the shoulder,
who was it?
or whatever. He's one of two characters. He's either Kellogg or he's Jason.
Ooh,
That's who I think he is. He's either Kellogg or Jason.
And
so
I
the
think
Kellogg of the future that we saw is a peaceful guy who wants to bring people together. And I think that's who he really is. He's Kellogg who has survived the worst timeline going forward and made a decision to go all the way back. And he is kind of madness. I replayed the line. He says a line, and it is literally 4 pieces of dialogue all layered over top. I could not make it out. It's almost like a marauder. But I really tried to listen to it. He says it with him and Catherine are in the room when they invade the freelancer base. Yeah. He actually says a line, but it is, they audioed 4 lines over top one another, and there's 4 different voices in there. But I really think it's either Kellogg or Jason.
Well, I got the album, and I played it backwards.
Yes, and it's Bob Marley.
Kill Ringo now.
Yes.
So, all right, so that's definitely very interesting stuff.
Confusing scene, Tony.
I was most confused when I discovered as I was sitting here that I must have fallen asleep the last 10 minutes because I didn't realize that Dylan had died. I'm just scrubbing through my scenes.
Dude, that's the biggest gun.
I don't remember seeing that explosion. What's going on?
Yeah. That's
what happens when you watch 3 episodes.
Massive. Oh yeah.
And I actually watched the first one twice like an idiot because I wanted to do wanted to get all my notes right.
Yeah, that what was interesting
I'm totally
about
confused right now.
Well, it's the last 10 minutes. Okay.
Exactly. Well, she became a genetic bomb.
Okay.
And she said, she has this great line. I can't remember what it is, but you're guilty. You're charged
I find you guilty.
Yeah, and she slaps her hands, and then the whole office fucking blows up, and he gets taken out, and she obviously gets taken out, just as a SWAT team's going in there to take her out. And it was brilliantly played because these 4 guys come out of the elevator, and then all this SWAT gear, and they're saying, "Oh, okay, something's happening," and they're building up all this scenario stuff for us, and then they just say, "Oh, by the way, that's just bullshit. We're blowing her up."
And the explosion is amazing. They did a really good job with it. It's a giant fireball, but Dylan isn't technically dead, by the way.
Well, he can come back in another timeline.
Yes, I'm gonna explain it in 3 quick scenes. 1, she gets carried out in a body bag. He is on a gurney with people around him, so he's not in a body bag. First thing. Yep. 2, when Kellogg throws the line, there's an open board seat. Then he says the line, "I know that you're fond of him." Not were. There's no past tense. And he said, "Oh, too soon?" I don't think he's officially dead. I think he should be officially dead, but I don't think he is.
That's some classic ADHD right there.
Yeah, that's me just trying to figure shit out. My most confusing scene is between Chen and Kellogg, and they're at the car, and Kellogg, they have this really weird, I don't know what they're talking about scene, and Chen says, "Are you sure that it's happening today?" And he says, "My intel is top shelf." And then Chen says, "I just want you to know, he wants you to get what's coming to you," meaning the traveler.
Yeah,
and that's when he says the line that, Catherine isn't his disciple, she's his jailer. So that really influenced me that perhaps this guy actually is Kellogg. And he's really going to be talking to himself very shortly.
Wow, nice theory.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw it in. Oh, go ahead, Tony.
I was just saying you actually just refuted yourself. Because he just told he told Kellogg that there are good things coming for you.
The line was, "He wants you to get everything that you want." I think that was the line. Which would make sense if Kellogg's talking to Kellogg. He would totally want him to get everything he wants, right?
Or somebody that knows Kellogg.
Yeah. He wants you to get everything that's,
coming
he wants you to get what you want. Yeah.
But that's also a foreboding statement, too, right? It's not
It is. That's what's so great.
So that's why I'm thinking it may not actually be Kellogg.
Well,
because really, it could be the Kellogg of the future punishing his past self, which is what's so cool about it. That maybe the adversarial is the two Kellogg's and not the two Alex. Because by the end of the episode, Alex says, I thought the problem was me, and you thought the problem was me to Kira. And then Kira says, maybe the problem is me. And he says, problem or solution? We don't know. So the problem could be Kellogg, which would make a lot of sense.
Solution.
Yeah.
Wow, it's great. Well, that was a great ADHD debate. Everybody is lost, but that's great. We'll put that a new category in our questions. And now, what's the ADHD section? But that was good stuff. For me, I would say the most confusing scene or character kind of thing is Chen alive and dead. Which one? Because he appears several times. And you can't really tell, is that the guy they resurrected or is it the guy that's been running around before? I mean, what's going on? There's two of the guys.
Yeah, so what's really interesting is the line they use is sorry.
No problem.
Is that he's merged. So here's how I understand it.
Pick that up.
The techno guru, the traveler, when he touches him, he takes a Chen from another timeline that is alive and shoves him into this dead body, his consciousness. So he is a live Chen from timeline 15, and he comes into this timeline knowing everything from the other timeline and realizing he was dead, experiencing the whole death of that Chen. And so he meets literally life and death in that moment, but has a history from that other timeline, and I think Jason may have the same problem.
Oh, here's another thing, though. If he's pulling Chens out of different timelines, then he can literally pull a Chen from every moment prior to when he gets killed. So it's like a fraction of a second. He's got an unlimited number of Chens he can pull from.
Well, it's interesting. So why do the freelancers keep these people in the boxes? Because they're time travelers, so their bodies are literally just vessels. That's why they keep them, in order to get, in case they need to occupy them, they occupy them.
Well, I would say I would have to beg to differ unless there's a big new thing coming in next season, because when Alex gets rescued, there's nobody left. They're all gone. And Alex says, who was next? It was me. So what were they doing with those bodies? Were they killing them off, or were they sending them to different timelines?
Setting them free into the timeline. Maybe we're going to see, like, Jaworski wasn't there, right? And his was they were keeping his body alive somehow, or it was dead, and they were just having it hang there. So maybe Jaworski will show up in the next season, which I'd love, because him and Kellogg are my faves. But like that, you're right. It is interesting, but why keep them in the tubes? Like, I know most of it is information extraction. Anybody who travels in time has information. So these freelancers need to gather as much information as possible. So it's always about that. It's always about, what do you know about your timeline? What do you know about this person? When did this person go back? When did that happen? They're always trying to do math on the whole thing.
Well, also that, she does that very important statement. It's basically saying, no, there is a way it has to be. It's like, we've seen the future and we've seen the past, and there is a sequence, and you're fucking up the sequence, guys. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get back to, there's an infinite amount of realities, and we've discovered that if we do all these things the right way, we'll get back to our reality, and then we're going to shut down this whole time travel thing. Because that's the paradox of time travel. Once you've started time travel, you start making new realities, you're going to mess up a lot of stuff. So that, very, very interesting.
That brings up something that, from what you said, assuming we're going with the J. Dean idea that they don't travel around, they kind of just interview people who have traveled through time and screwed stuff up. There's that line, another one of my confusing lines, I travel through time for the cause. Yeah. Well, freelancers don't travel through time. They collect time travelers. So I didn't get that either.
Both Warren came from the future apparently, or has been a time travel, and that is more revealed in, I think, the webisode for this one, where it was Warren and the other guy, and they were having a conversation about that, and that was a confusing webisode. And Chen, both of them are time travelers. Catherine is not, and the other people in that timeline, in that cell, are not time travelers, but Chen and Warren are. And so they were brought back and asked, because the question is asked, he said, "Who are you with, brother?" Chen asks Warren, and Warren says, "I'm here now. This is my timeline," basically. So Warren is committed to this timeline, even though he knows of another.
Okay.
So, but there is two, but yeah, it is confusing.
Okay.
All right. So let's get down to the score. Starting with JD, what would you give this guy?
I'm going to give this one, I'm going to give it a 4.1. I think it's an absolutely solid episode. I think they tied up a whole bunch of threads, opened a big can of whoop-ass in the episode, was so bloody entertaining, killed Sonya, almost killed Dylan, killed Catherine, killed the entire cell of the freelancers. It was a body count. I friggin' loved it. You know what? Forget 4.1. I'm gonna go I'll go 4.3. I'll match it just because.
He just whips it out.
Just because of the achievement of what they've accomplished to set up the finale, and I think it was a hard episode to write. The first time I watched it, I didn't enjoy it as much as the second time I watched it.
Interesting. Okay, Steffi, what's going on with you?
Okay, so we're assuming that in the scoring, he goes with the gut reaction of your heart, right?
Oh, here it comes.
So I watched this episode, and the very first thing that screamed in my brain was 2.0.
Yeah.
Wow. It really didn't connect for you.
I hated that I felt so sad that all the characters that I started to love disintegrated. And I usually think that's super cool.
Yeah.
But then they started building up these relationship things. Like, I gotta tell you, I'm not loving the Kira and Brad thing. This whole she's forgotten she had a family.
I wouldn't sleep with him.
I hate the direction they took this. I hate that years have gone by of Liberate, and then they just gave up. I hate that. So much of this. I don't like how they're tying it up. It doesn't feel good. I want to feel good.
Oh.
Wow. Okay, so that was a womanly opinion.
Steph got hurt.
Way too much violence.
Oh my God! Seriously?
I mean, it's been done fabulously. Everything's been done fabulously, but I don't like the decisions.
That's
okay.
Okay. Hey, look at that's an amazing opinion. I like it.
I'm gonna send you some.
Tony.
I'm giving this one an incomplete because I have to watch the last 10 minutes again.
Oh,
nice.
Yes,
this is all falling off. This is terrible. An incomplete, a 2.0. This is. I'm horrified.
I'm horrified. 0 because I'm just a chicken shit.
Yeah.
I gave it a. I actually gave it a strong 4.2. I was going to give it a 4.2, but I brought it down to 4.2. I really thought there's some amazing stuff. The fight sequences, the Buka, looking into you.
Nice.
So yeah.
Were the only two that were paying attention, or what?
Yeah, well, I could really. There are some shocking stuff they really, I must admit that I was quite surprised that they took out some major characters. Like, you guys, blown up, bye-bye, not coming back. It kind of reminds me of, there's another series that's going on right now, is the 100, and it's like these 100 characters are on the Earth, and they're killing them off left, right, and center. So you do really know what's going on. So I think that's very clever to be able to go in there and say, look at, here's these characters you know and love, and hey, they're out of here. What's going on? Because going into the next episode 13, who else is going to get killed off? If nobody is safe, I think that was one of the major mistakes with The Walking Dead, is you had these characters that went on and on and on, and then they come back, it's like, no, just kill them off and kill off the ones people love, because then they'll go into shock and say, what's going on? And this is what they did in this episode. They took out some serious people. I mean, there's so many characters going on right now. As a writer, we've got to kill off some of these people.
And they have to stay dead. Stay dead. No more new timeline.
Exactly. I got to go on vacation next week with my kids. There's no way we're going to be able to write this for next season. So yeah, I'm very.
Steph, I think you're going to be a little disappointed next season because there's going to be a big sacrifice of Brad is going to die for Kira, and you're not going to feel the impact. You're not going to connect to it. You're going to go, it didn't work for me.
Well, or what they could do is that Kira dies and Brad takes over and becomes the new Kira. Hey,
I'd be
that
okay
would
with
mess
that.
with you.
See,
I give that a 4.2. Oh,
and he fights to get back to a timeline where she exists.
Exactly. Has sex with her, raises the child, and brings her back as the new Kira. Yes. That's how twisted this show is. You can get away with crap like that. It's nuts. It's
all right,
absolutely
Bobby,
nuts.
Wrap this
all right,
thing
so
up.
let's wrap this sucker up because we're at 1 hour and 49 minutes on the audio version. Holy crap, this is a crazy long show, but awesome stuff. We're going to be having the next show, which is the finale, coming up in the, 4 days we've got to actually watch.
So Last Minute will be on June 22nd this Sunday, and then we will do our live show on June 29th at 7 p.m. the following Sunday. So it'll give everybody a lot of time to watch if they want to catch up, because I know the finale from last season, I had to rewatch the last 3 episodes like 3 times before I knew what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
So that week will be really good for us to go, what?
Yeah. What?
And has anybody seen the trailer for it yet? They're turning young Alec into Steve Jobs.
I cannot watch the trailers. It's spoilers.
Oh.
You know,
Spoilers.
I gotta watch it in sequence.
Okay.
For God's sake, it's hard enough to, a trailer. It jumps all over the place. This show is. It's like trailer on trailer.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I just like to thank Stephanie, obviously, for coming in and being such a sweetheart and scoring such a low mark there. That was awesome.
I love it. I think it's good.
So, we do
I'll teach Continuum.
We're just not masturbating here, for Continuum, it's great. Oh, yes. Sometimes they get shut down. And Big Tony, thanks for coming on. Always fascinating.
Staying awake, Tony.
Thanks.
Sorry.
So everybody out there in Crazy TV Talk land, here I am in the Crazy TV Talk micro studio saying arrivederci.
Well, thanks again to Steph, Tony, and Bob, and to the folks listening out there. Check us out in iTunes, rate us, review us. We're now up in Stitcher as well. So if you're listening, you can, if that's the app that you use, we're up in Stitcher now. So check us out there, rate us and review us there. Send us questions through there as well. And please, Shaw Media, renew this show. Get on it. It's weeks after. Bring this show back. There are so many more stories that need to be told. Do not let this go. And if you're listening to this or watching this after, make sure they get a 4th season. There's way too much going on for this to stop here. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Easy to do. Send an email. Yeah.
Exactly. All you got to do is pick up the phone Shaw, and say, "Look, I'm thinking of canceling my my Shaw account. If you cancel Continuum."
Yeah. I think so. Like Showcase would love to show it. They're getting the ratings. They're getting the stuff. It's just whether they want to pony up and make it. And Sci-Fi's getting the ratings too. So come on. Get your shit together.
We don't want it to become another Firefly, for God's sake.
No.
Don't bring Firefly. It's so depressing. So anyways, and also, just to let you know, if you're listening to this on iTunes and stuff, that's just the top 50 shows. We have a lot of shows. If you go to crazytvtalk.com, there's all sorts of amazing show notes that Jadine does. I'd highly recommend it. He's cut down, but some of our previous shows are just absolutely ridiculous.
I'll get back on it.
Yeah, and you can go all the way down. If you listen to, this is me and Marcel, one of my original hosts, and we did something very similar to this, but we did it with Breaking Bad. If you like Breaking Bad, you'll love our first 5 episodes. We did the first 5 seasons of Breaking Bad. So, and that was crazy because we did 1 season a week, back to back.
Bananas.
And with that, I'm going to say I'm turning off this broadcast.